Okay, welcome to a quick introduction to supplements, and in this video we're going to quickly cover some supplements that you should definitely look to invest in, and don't worry, they're not going to cost you a fortune, but also some that we need to definitely stay clear of. But first of all, before we go through that, we need to understand some of the basics of what supplements are in themselves. So first of all, what is a supplement? Well, a supplement is exactly that. It's there to supplement only, in that we should still be following a good high level diet, which is full of protein, carbohydrates, fats, and has a good variety, and also gives us plenty of vitamins and minerals too to make sure our body's doing the right things. However, there are some supplements that we could be consuming which are definitely going to help us on our journey, and also do things like making sure we're not missing certain aspects, which ultimately means that our bodies are doing enough and getting enough of the right things to make sure that we are being as efficient as possible on our journey to looking and feeling better. And so we do have to ask the question, well, are they necessary if that's the case? If we can get all of this from a diet, why do we need to have them? And we don't need to have them, but it's always nice to have them, because the ones that I'm going to discuss are literally going to cost you pennies or the equivalent of pennies per day. And so it would be no real reason why not to leave them out. And they've also been tried and tested both from a personal point of view and also in peer-reviewed studies too. So they're pretty much as safe as you can get. And as I mentioned before, the things that we'll discuss, you don't have to be spending an absolute fortune on them. You can get the basics and get everything that you need from them without breaking the bank. So I'll talk through what I call the big three. So first of all, you got whey protein, or if you are vegetarian or vegan, then you could get a plant-based alternative. And what this is a powdered protein source. And the reason why I recommend this one is because most people don't have enough protein in their diets, and they can find it difficult to, one, buy it, and then also prepare it, and then finally find a time in the day to eat it. And so where something like a protein shake would come into play, and don't worry, you're not going to get massive from having a protein shake. If that was the case, the supplement industry would be absolutely monumentally huge. It is there just to top up the protein intake that you're having normally anyway. But what this allows you to do is have a quick hit of protein, and meaning that you don't have to spend an absolute fortune on buying foods that will bolster the amount of protein that you should be having each day. So we have to remember as well that with protein, just treat it more like a food rather than a supplement in itself. It is a bit of an exception to the rule, and you don't need to be having loads of it. Just follow the packaging requirements, and obviously whatever you've been given in your nutrition report as well, that's what you should be aiming to hit per day. Then second of all, we've got multivitamins. Now if you can imagine something like a store brand multivitamin, as long as it hits the recommended daily allowances, then you don't have to be spending a fortune, and don't worry about getting things like men and women specific multivitamins or something which costs you, however much. It should be very minimal in cost. It should work out to be like 4 or 5 pence a day, which is nothing really. And then in return, it'll make sure that even if you are following a pretty good diet, that you're going to be getting enough of the vitamins and minerals that you require each day and stop you potentially missing out. Then finally, omega-3s. So the reason why omega-3s are on there is because they are um, something that is called an essential fatty acid, and it's actually quite difficult to get enough omega-3s in our diets without having a lot of things like oily fish and yolks from eggs. So if you don't like either of these, it's always good just to have them. And again, you don't need to be taking loads. Just go off what the package recommendation says. So if it's 1 a day, have 1 a day. If it says 2 a day, have 2 a day. And that's it. You don't need to be going crazy with them. And again, these don't cost you that much money. And then, so this one's a bit of a nice to have, but if you are someone that struggles quite a lot with your menstruation cycle, and it comes to the time of the month and you feel like you are someone that massively struggles with things like cramps and just generally has a bad time, then you could definitely look to invest in something like a PMS complex, and literally come labeled as that. Otherwise, you can get something like calcium and vitamin D and magnesium, combine them, and they should help you along massively, which means that you have less discomfort as well. And even if you're male, it's still going to serve you well to have these anyway. There's nothing wrong with having too much if you think about them and their separate purposes. So calcium is obviously really good for the bones. Vitamin D is required in order for our bodies to be able to use calcium in the right amount, and then magnesium is just there for a plethora of health reasons, so they're good to have anyway. So we need to pay caution to a few supplements, and you'll see these quite often marketed on things like Facebook and whatnot. So just be quite careful of these ones because they do have some negative health effects and people have actually died from taking them. Whereas the three that I've suggested before, so far nobody's died from having too much protein, no one's died from having too much multivitamins, although if you had an extreme amount, yes you could, but we'll not go down that route. And then same again with essential fatty acids too. So first of all, anything that comes under the label of like a skinny tea or a detox tea or anything like that, you get skinny coffees and all that sort of stuff. They are not worth it, and I wouldn't even concern myself too much with them. Chances are they do also contain things which are illegal, especially if they're not from a particularly reputable brand as well, and they can actually become quite addictive. And the other negative is that people tend to think that, well, if they use them, then they'll get X result. Well, what if they have double? Then they're going to get an even better result. And actually what happens is they can actually become really quite ill. And there has been a few situations where people have become fatally ill from them as well. So just be very careful with things that are labeled like this. Same with fat burners. A lot of them are actually just expensive caffeine. And yes, they'll give you a bit of an energy boost, but for most people, you just don't require a fat burner type supplement. And also, to be honest, they are something that you're not really going to get much benefit from as it is, especially if you're the average person anyway. Now, maybe someone at the highest levels, if you get the right type, yeah, that could probably help. But generally, I would steer clear and save yourself some serious money as well. And then also you need to make sure that you stay well away from things like whatever has a proprietary blend in it, because generally that just means that it's made up of something that they don't want to say, and because of marketing rules they are allowed to say a proprietary blend instead of things like having ephedrine or speed or whatever it may be in it, which does actually happen. And the proprietary blend can sometimes even be something pretty pointless, like a baking soda mix or something like that, just to bulk them out. So I wouldn't be too concerned with anything that has a proprietary blend. And then finally, anything celebrity endorsed. So you get it, especially these days with social media. A lot of celebrities get paid a lot of money to endorse a product. So if you see your favorite celebrity and they're endorsing something, chances are you are likely to realize quite quickly that they don't actually use the supplement. But if you were getting paid £50,000 a day or a week, you'd probably endorse a supplement too. So just be very careful of that. So in summary, the only three supplements you need to pay attention to, and I definitely recommend you buy them, is some sort of pretty high quality protein powder. So if it's for someone who is, capable of eating anything, then obviously whey protein powder is absolutely fine. If you are a vegetarian or vegan, then go with a plant-based option, something like pea protein, etc. Multivitamin, again, doesn't have to be massively expensive, just something that's quite cheap and does the job, and also omega-3s. And so nothing else is necessary, but some can be nice to have. So as I mentioned before, like the PMS complex, that could be nice to have, especially if you do struggle with your menstruation cycles, etc. Definitely something to consider too, if that feels like it could be something that would benefit you.